So we have seen that on the first journey, Paul's commitment was to following relational streams, the ethne principle. Now we come to his second journey, where he planted into households, the oikos of the Greek-Roman world. We read about this in Acts chapters 15 to 18, and we're on page 22 and 23 of our conversation guides. When Paul and Silas left Antioch on this second journey, they first travelled into southern Galatia, where Paul had worked with Barnabas on the first journey, and there they added to their team a young teenager by the name of Timothy. He travelled with them. Paul was wanting to go into the province of Asia, but the Spirit prevented them from doing that, and finally they ended up in Troas, over on the coast. And there during the night, Paul had a vision with a Macedonian man calling him, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." And so, understanding that this was the leading of the Holy Spirit, they left Troas by boat and they travelled across to Philippi, a pagan city in Macedonia. There were not enough Jews in that city for a synagogue, but Paul, first visiting the marketplace and meeting people there, would have met Lydia, who was a trader in purple cloth. And he learnt that on the Sabbath days, God-fearers met out beside the river. So he went out to the river, and there they met to share the story of Jesus' resurrection. And Lydia and her oikos, her whole household, maybe her parents, her uncles, her aunts, her children, her servants, her slaves, perhaps her husband, Lydia and her whole household became believers in Jesus and were baptized, and a church was established in their home. A church is a gathering of new disciples. And then in Philippi, Paul and Silas continued to work, and one day they cast out the evil spirit from a slave girl who was persistently pursuing them through the city. The owner of the slave girl became upset. Paul and Silas end up in prison, and through their singing and praying, the jailer and his whole oikos became believers in Jesus. Another church was planted in Philippi. But because of the uproar in the city, Paul and Silas were thrown out of the city. They had to leave the next day. They went on to Thessalonica, where Jason and his household became believers. And so we continue through journey number 2. The focus was upon the oikos. Now on page 23, you have an oikos map. This is a really great aid to understanding family relationships and family connections. We've already looked at the ethne map, the idea of looking at where you are, your place and your people, and then looking at what relational streams you can follow into other people groups, into other provinces, into other places. But an oikos map is where you look at your own family situation or the family of your neighbours and friends, and you look at all the connectedness to see how to share faith in the wider community of the oikos. I would like you now to work in your groups, in your church planting teams for the next 20 minutes, working through the application section on page 22, where you explore the whole concept of oikos planting, and then develop your own oikos map on page 23, so that you can see the connections that you have as a group with families and neighbours and friends, to identify exactly where you might be working to share faith, to lead people to be disciples of Jesus, and where you might be planting new churches. And then we'll continue on looking at the third missionary journey. 20 minutes together in your groups right now.